Peace, 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 family. What it is, it's your brother Tavon Sueno, aka the Orthodox Moor. Apologize for some technical difficulties. We were having a debate on the main channel, Solar Vision Debate League. However, there was a power outage that affected what Solar was able to do. He's not able to get his internet back up right now, and so he can't even join by phone right now. He can't even get on the Hangouts with his phone right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the debate over here with me and Gideon. And I'm going to use the SVDO Classics icon and channel, whatever, to show everyone the clock that we're going to be running on. We're going to have a format to where we're going to have 5-minute opening, 10-minute rounds, a 10-minute premise, 10-minute rebuttal. We're going to do a 7-minute interrogation style rapid fire, and then a 15-minute just regular rapid fire, 5-minute closing. And then we'll probably, at this juncture, we can just open it up to the panel and just have fun with it. Let people just interact and come through and just do like the post debate with it. You know what I'm saying? I will definitely be on my best behavior. There will be no talking over people here. We're gonna have a good debate here. You know what I'm saying? A good discussion, all that type of stuff. When we go to the rapid fire where it's not interrogation style, we will respectfully just do one question apiece. Hey, he asks a question, I ask a question, he asks a question, I ask a question. There won't be any struggle for dominance, none of that type of stuff. We'll just have, being that there's no moderator, we're going to moderate ourselves. So with that being said, family, let me set a couple things up real quick, and then I will. Bam. Can you see that screen, Gideon?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Good man. Seconds. Give me 2 seconds. I had to get creative with the computer setup so the family could see the timer.
Take your time. And once again, we apologize for the technical difficulties, but we're going to get right back in this thing, and we're going to make it do what it do. All in the name of the Most High. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, indeed. Yeah, I feel kind of bad because my brother was in a good groove when we cut off. You know what I'm saying? He was just starting to get into it.
I was getting into it, like, for real.
But you can see, you can go back on the Solar Vision Debate League channel, catch the first 27 minutes at another time, you know what I'm saying, and see how it was. But we're going to run it back one more time for you anyway. And we appreciate your time, your patience, and all that. While I'm waiting for my other computer to load up real quick, this is going to be an extremely interesting conversation, and one that's going to be really poignant. I think it's going to point towards the direction that this league is going in terms of scholarship and in terms of the kind of conversation, information we're bringing to the people. A lot of people like to bicker and talk about a lot of little stuff. You know what I'm saying? But we're getting into the real thick of the matter. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is going to be interesting on all sides. So please stay tuned. Get your pens, papers, pencils, all that ready. Get your notepads, your notepads on your phone ready, all that type of stuff. Because we're all going to learn tonight. We're going to learn from each other tonight. This isn't about dominance. This isn't about right and wrong. This is about truth. Truth don't care about nobody's feelings. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, all in preparation, getting ready for the big championship debate tomorrow. So it's gonna be a good one tomorrow. So we just holding y'all down, at least you know, till then.
Yeah, giving y'all a beat to step two. You feel me? We can't leave you without one now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Stay
man.
tuned, because Rob Rack and the Mikael finna get the in.
Yeah, man. I'm actually anticipating that, because I would love to see my brother Rob answer a question, man. So that's gonna be a good one. I don't think he
Yeah,
can
that's
win.
gonna be.
I don't think he
Yeah,
can win this one without answering a question. So it's on you, Rob. The pressure's on you, bro.
yeah. What's gonna be interesting is that you already know that Solar's itching to do a shucklebuck round. You know what I'm saying? He ain't done one in a little bit, so I know he got the itch. So and for the playoffs, you know he gonna turn up. You know what I'm saying? So we about to see some real deal stuff for the playoffs. He ain't gonna give away that trophy for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all going to earn that one.
This for all the marbles right here.
Yes,
you know.
But with all that being said, family, I got my computer up and running. Let me go hit play real quick on this time. I'll jump right into it. Okay, peace, family. So the title of this debate is Isaiah 53 speaking of a literal or a figurative sacrifice? A literal or a figurative ASHAM? This debate is not about who the righteous teacher is or who the righteous servant is of Isaiah 53. It's not about any messianic figures. It's not about any covenants, old or new. It's not about Melchizedek versus Levi versus Moses or Aaron. This debate is simply about understanding if the ASHAM or sin trespass offering as mentioned in Isaiah 53 is either literal or figurative. Nothing more, nothing less. Any attempt to lead the conversation into the topics mentioned beforehand should be seen as either a sign of intellectual dishonesty or an honest lack of a solid argument for this debate. So these are the points that I want people to pay attention to. So one, if Isaiah 53 is a literal ASHAM, it needs to be understood, is it for an individual or is it for a group of people? This needs to be understood because there's different laws that apply to such. If Isaiah 53 is a literal ASHAM, then the process of that literal ASHAM would be found, and it has to apply via Leviticus 7:1-7. If Isaiah 53 is a literal ASHAM for the nation of Israel, the process of Leviticus 4:13-21 applies. If Isaiah 53 is a literal ASHAM, a soul is not a sacrifice listed in Leviticus 4 or 5 that applies to an ASHAM. A human being's blood is not clean for a sacrifice anywhere in Levitical law. Also, no word for blood, sacrifice, atonement, redemption, or ransom is anywhere in the Hebrew of Isaiah 53. Not anywhere. If Isaiah 53 also is a literal ASHAM, then a new law explaining a human blood ASHAM for the individual being performed needs to be cited. If it's an ASHAM for the nation, a new law explaining Israel performing an ASHAM with human blood needs to be cited. If a new law or laws are not cited, it is not possible for Isaiah 53 to be a literal ASHAM. As a man is not the lamb, ram, goat, turtle, dove, pigeon, or bull that's described as being what an ASHAM offering is in Leviticus. Also, a human blood and a human being is not an applicable sacrifice or a clean sacrifice anywhere in the Levitical law for an ASHAM or anything else for that matter. So if anyone's going to make the argument that the righteous servant of Isaiah 53 is performing a literal ASHAM, they're going to have to show, one, where is a law coming down that explains this ASHAM? Two, where is a soul applicable to be an ASHAM? And three, if it's not the soul, where can human blood be applicable for an ASHAM? I can't see it anywhere, family. So these things have to be cited and they have to be understood. Because typically the argument is for the Messianic brothers that they argue the Melchizedek versus the Levitical law. So if the Levitical law is insufficient in explaining what an ASHAM is, then the Melchizedek law has to explain it, and it has to explain it clearly in the text. If this can't be shown, no one can take the honest perspective or say honestly that it's pointing to a literal ASHAM. Hebrew is such a language to where it denotes in and of itself if the language is being figurative or literal within the context of the language, of the sentence or the chapter it's in. So via that concept, we're going to see via methodology, is it literal or is it figurative? And with that, I will yield the balance of my time.
Shalom, shalom. So that was the
Whenever
brother
you're ready,
Moore
just
with
let me
his
know.
that was the brother Moore with his opening. So yeah, whenever you're ready, whenever I start reading it, I guess we can start. So basically, like the brother said, tonight's debate is Isaiah 53 a literal or figurative sacrifice. And so basically, I'm gonna go straight to Isaiah 53, and we're gonna read it because that's basically where the crux of the matter is at. So Isaiah 53 verse 1, it says, "Who has believed our report, and to whom is the arm of Yah revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He had no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised, rejected of men, of man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not." So in verse 3, it says, "He is despised, rejected of men, a man of sorrows." Basically, what I want to do tonight is I'm going to show how not only is the ASHAM literal, but the suffering is literal as well, being that the brother Tavon does believe in Yeshua, meaning that he believes in the gospel because that's the only account we have of Yeshua. We're going to use his sacrifice and his fulfillment of these prophecies when I'm reading it. So it says, "He is despised" in verse 3 and rejected of men, a man of sorrows. Well, if we go to Matthew chapter 2, when the Pharisees, they see Yeshua doing the things that he does, it says in verse 14, "They went out and plotted against him how they might destroy him." And when we go to John 10, chapter 30, or rather, so Matthew 26:59, it says, "Now the chief priests, the elders, and all the council sought false testimony against Yeshua to put him to death, but found none." Now let's go to verse 4. "Surely he hath borne," which is bear, which is the Hebrew word nasa, "our griefs, and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of Yah, and afflicted." Now, when we go to that word born, that's the Hebrew word for nasa. And when we go to Leviticus 5:17, it speaks to that. And we're going to go to Leviticus 5:17. I'm going to open up my scriptures, and we're going to go to Leviticus 5:17. Leviticus 5:17. if a person sins and commits any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of Yah, though he does not know it, he is guilty, and he shall bear his iniquity. That word is nasa, the same word we see in verse 4. Surely he has nasa our griefs. And that word for griefs is basically meaning sickness. So he has borne our griefs and our sicknesses and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten of Yah, and afflicted. Now, when we look at that word stricken, that's the Hebrew word naga. And when we go to Exodus 12, we see that word is used when it's speaking of putting the blood on the beams of wood. And let's go to Exodus 12. Let's see if I can find that real fast. Exodus 12. And 22. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and nasa the lintel, and the two doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. So we see right here that when we see this, it's all played out. And let's go to Matthew chapter 8, verse 2. Because, like I say, that word griefs, it's holayenu, and it means sickness. And what he says in the scriptures, he says, put your burdens on me. Yeshua, being the sacrifice, took our sins. He took our uncleanness. He took our iniquity, and it was placed upon him. He was those sacrifices. Yeshua fulfilled all of those sacrifices. So let's go to Matthew 8 and verse 1. Matthew 8, verse 1, because
Your time ran out, bro.
Yeshua.
Time ran out. There's no beep on it for some reason. I thought it would beep, but it doesn't beep.
Oh, okay. All right, so I stopped at 4. So, okay. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, it is. I do hear. I do. It's just we're light. Okay. If you want to go ahead and finish up the verse you're reading, go ahead, because I'm gonna reset the time to make it 10 minutes. So go ahead and finish up the verse you want to.
I just start from 4 when I come back.
Okay, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, you good.
So my time is going family. So let me jump right into this. So right off the top, one of the inconsistencies I noticed is that my brother's going to consistently have to rely on the Levitical law to explain what he's saying, but at the same point in time, is going to say that the Levitical law is the lesser law and that the Melchizedek law is the real law. That the Levitical law is a foreshadowing of the real law. So he just went to Leviticus 5 to explain something about the ASHAM sacrifice. In Leviticus 5, it says that the ASHAM sacrifice has to be either a lamb, a ram, a goat, a pigeon, a turtle dove, etc. So again, it cannot be a literal ASHAM in Isaiah 53 because in Isaiah 53 it is speaking about a human being, a righteous servant who is justifying many by his knowledge. Again, nowhere is there blood anywhere in this chapter. You will not find the word blood. You will not find the word ransom. You will not find the word atonement. You will not find the word redemption. You will not find the word sacrifice anywhere in the Hebrew. And so just to be clear, he didn't give you anything about a new law breaking down what this literal ASHAM is that allows for a human being to satisfy this ASHAM. What he's trying to do is make this a debate about Jesus. And again, like I said, this isn't about who the righteous servant is or what the messianic figure is. It's about, is the ASHAM literal or figurative? The linguistics of the text. So let's just get into the linguistics real quick. The ASHAM spoken of in the verse, H817, 817 in the Strong's Concordance. It means guilt. By implication, a fault, also a sin offering, also a trespass offering. So let's get into the Levitical law of what that is so we can differentiate that from the Melchizedek law. I'm not going to read all of it because it's lengthy, but I'm going to give you enough so you can kind of understand the basic theme thereof. So in Leviticus 7, it says this is the law of the ASHAM trespass / sin offering. It's procedure thereof that the priests have to follow. Verses 1 through 7, Leviticus 7, 1 through 7. Likewise, this is the law of the trespass offering. It is most holy. Oh, by the way, Gideon, if I run over time, let me know, okay? Because I'm watching another screen. Likewise, this is the law of the trespass offering. It is most holy. In the place where they kill the burnt offering, shall they kill the trespass offering, and the blood thereof shall he sprinkle round about upon the altar. And he shall offer all the fat thereof, the rump and the fat that covereth the inwards. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a trespass offering. Every male among the priests shall eat thereof. It shall be eaten in the holy place. It is most holy. As the sin offering is, so is a trespass offering. There is one law for them, the priest that maketh atonement therewith shall have it. Now, nowhere in Isaiah 53 do we see this process taking place with the individual. So even if Gideon is able to point to a new law, which he won't be able to do, that explains a human being in a sham sacrifice, there's nothing he's going to break down that says, well, there's another process for it. And so this process you just heard, where the fat is being divided from the organs, the body's being burnt as an offering and consumed by a Levitical priest, nowhere is this mentioned anywhere in Isaiah 53. Moving forward, there's two laws. There's a law for an individual having a sham offering, and there's a law for when the congregation or the nation of Israel needs to deal with an ASHAM offering, right? So real quick, he mentioned Leviticus chapter 5. He mentioned verse 4. He mentioned a couple other verses. I'm gonna go from verse 5, and I'm going to read from 5 to 13 real quick, because this is an ASHAM for an individual. Again, it has to be ascertained: is it an individual or a group ASHAM? He's not going to touch this. And it shall be, and this is verse 5, and it shall be when he shall be guilty in one of these things that he shall confess that he has sinned in that thing, and he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin, which she hath sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb or a kid of the goats, for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his sin. And if he be not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring for his trespass, which he hath committed, 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons unto the Lord, for one is a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. And he shall bring them unto the priest, etc. And he shall sprinkle the blood, etc. Right? This is a sin offering. And he shall offer the second for a burnt offering, according to the manner, and the priest shall make an atonement for him for his sin, etc. But if he cannot bring 2 turtle doves and 2 young pigeons, then he that sinned shall bring for his offering the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a sin offering. He shall put no oil upon it, neither shall he put any frankincense thereon, for it is a sin offering. Verse 12, this shall he bring to the priest, and the priest shall take his handful of it, and even a memorial thereof, and burn it on the altar according to the offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a sin offering. Verse 13, and the priest shall make an atonement for him as touching his sin, that he has sinned in one of these, and it shall be forgiven him, and the remnant shall be the priest's as a meat offering. Again, none of this is described or broken down or explained anywhere in Isaiah 53, nor is a new law explaining a new version of this explained anywhere. And also a law for an individual who's ignorant of what they've done is also there. From verses 14 to 19, same process. I'm going to the priest with something else. I can even offer money in a situation, potentially, right? To cover the cost of something, depending on what the sin was. Law, but here's the concept. We have the law of the ASHAM, the trespass and sin offering for Israel as a congregation. This is in Leviticus chapter 4, verses 13 through 21. And if the whole congregation, starting at 13, of Israel sin through ignorance, and the thing be hid from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done somewhat against any of the commandments of the Lord concerning things which should not be done, and are guilty, when the sin which they have sinned against is known, then the congregation shall offer a young bullock for the sin, and bring him before the tabernacle of the congregation. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands upon the head of the bullock before the Lord, and the bullock shall be killed before the Lord. And the priest that is anointed shall bring of the bullock's blood to the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall dip his fingers in some of the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord, even before the veil. And he shall put some of the blood upon the horns of the altar, which is before the Lord, that is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour out all the blood at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he shall take all his fat from him and burn it upon the altar. And he shall do with the bullock as he did with the bullock for a sin offering. So shall he do with this, and the priest shall make an atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. And he shall carry forth the bullock without the camp, and burn him as he burned the first bullock. It is a sin offering for the congregation. None of these instructions are mentioned as or followed in Isaiah 53 anywhere. And there's not a new set of instructions on how to perform an ASHAM as to how it will apply to a human being and human blood being able to satisfy all the atonement concepts of what an ASHAM does. So if there's a new law, just cite it. But you can't go back to the old law and say, well, that law has a new meaning now because of Hebrews chapter 10 or Hebrews chapter 9 or Hebrews chapter 12 or any book in the book of Hebrews. You could read the entire book of Hebrews. The book of Hebrews is not written, nor is it claimed to be written within the text by a prophet of the Most High God. The position that is taken that this has to be literal without a new law being cited is basically stipulating that all the prophets of Israel were incorrect, and then this modern doctrine is correct based upon no word coming from no prophet to the people. This does not make sense, and this is not part of our cultural upbringing in history in disrespecting our prophets. We don't do that. That's not an Israelite thing. You respect the prophets. You respect the law. So if my man wants to say clearly, okay, that he wants to say the Levitical law is the lesser of the 2 laws, that the Melchizedek law is primary, okay, can you show me the primary Melchizedek law breaking down a literal ASHAM where a human being can satisfy this ASHAM, where a human soul can satisfy this ASHAM, blood can satisfy this ASHAM? Otherwise, you're trying to tell me the literal is figurative and the figurative is literal all at the same time. A human being is not a lamb, is not a ram, is not a bullock, is not a pigeon, is not a turtle dove, is not a goat. A human being is a human being. Any reference to a lamb or a ram is going to be figurative. Point blank and period, and not literal. And with that, I yield the balance of my time.
Sister, so I'm going to continue to read from where I left off in my reading of Isaiah 53. But it's some things, and once I get through with the reading of Isaiah 53 and throughout the reading of Isaiah 53, hopefully some things will come to the brother's understanding and he can see what is the proper understanding of what he's reading. So where we left off at, I left off at Isaiah 53 and verse 4, when I was speaking about surely he hath borne our griefs. And I was speaking of that word born, which is to mean bear, which is in Hebrew, nasa, which is when we went to Exodus 5:17, speaking of the men who bear their sins, bear their iniquity. So when we see surely this servant has borne our griefs, our sickness, and carried, surely he hath borne our griefs, and bear, which I was saying is nasa, and griefs is the word for sickness. So he has carried our sicknesses, our sorrows, yet we esteem him stricken. And we're not going to go back to Naga, but when we go to Exodus 12, we see that word Naga speaks of striking blood on the beams of wood. So, and when we see that this sickness that he took upon himself, when we go to Matthew chapter 8, we go to Leviticus 13, we see that when someone takes on sickness, and takes on disease, what that entails. That entails that that person is taking on iniquity, because if you become unclean, you are separated from the Most High. And we see that he borne our griefs, carried our sorrows. He was smitten of the Most High for that. So let's go to verse 5. It says, but he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting, because the brother throughout his position is saying that he don't see certain things happening in Isaiah 53 with the suffering servant. What we see right here, it says that with his stripes we are healed. So I need to know where this brother see an individual receive stripes and blood is not brought forth from those stripes. So when we go to verse 6, let's see, it says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and Yahweh have laid on him the iniquity of us all. Speaking of, when I was speaking of Matthew 8, when it's speaking of the leper that touched him and was healed, he took on that leper iniquity. And when we go to Leviticus 14, which I was speaking of as well, that's the law of the leper, which he must do when he's unclean. Matter of fact, let's go to it. It says, he is a leprous man, he is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him utterly unclean. His plague is in his head. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent and his head bare. And he shall put a covering upon his upper lip and shall cry, unclean, unclean. All the days where the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone. Without the camp shall his habitation be. So when we see that this suffering servant has borne our sickness and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken. When we go back to Exodus 12, we're speaking of the blood on the beams of the wood. He was smitten of Yahweh, because verse 6 reiterates it. It says that, I'm sorry, verse 6, it says, Yahweh laid on him the iniquity of us all. Verse 7, he was oppressed, he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought in as a lamb. And when we look at that word lamb, it's several words for the word lamb. But when we notice, we see it's only in Isaiah 53, verse 7. It's in Leviticus, speaking of the lamb for the sacrifice. And it also speaks of it in Genesis, I want to say 22, when Abraham is sacrificing, when he's bringing to sacrifice Isaac, and Abraham tells him, when Isaac asks, where is the sacrifice? Abraham tells him that Yahweh will provide the seh. That's the Hebrew word seh. And that's not the only word they have for lamb. The other word for lamb is marah, if I'm not mistaken. So we see here that this is speaking of a particular lamb. It chooses to use the Hebrew word set for it. And it says, to the slaughter he is brought, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. And when we go to Isaiah 52, it says, this servant whom I uphold, my elect, in whom my soul delight, I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. So we see when it says he's not opening his mouth, this all points to the suffering servant who is Yeshua. We go to Mark 14. It says that all through this chapter, when he's questioned by the high priest, he held his peace and answered nothing. Verse 8, he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off. That means he was destroyed. The Hebrew word is gazar, out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked and rich in his debt. And again, I need to see where someone is receiving stripes, someone is afflicted, someone is brought to the slaughter, whether you believe it's Yeshua or not. I need to see where this is happening and there's no blood there. And my brother makes it worse for himself because he believes in Yeshua. So he believes in the testimony and the gospel. So let's go back to verse 8 where I left off. Verse 9. I'm sorry. Verse 10. Yet it pleased Yahweh to bruise him, and hath put him to grief, when thou shalt make his soul an ASHAM, or an offering for sin. My brother said he didn't see the word sacrifice in there, but when you read this verse and you still say that, that's like saying if we're watching the Chicago Bulls play the Atlanta Hawks and the broadcaster never say this is an NBA presentation, we can't sit up there and run around and say that's not an NBA game just because it didn't say that. Clearly see that this soul is made in the sham. And when I speak to the brother directly, I need for him to show me where there's an ASHAM in the scriptures that has blood in his body, speaking of an animal, that isn't sacrificed and isn't killed. So he needs to show me where that ASHAM is at. So when we go to verse 11, he shall see the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied by his knowledge. Shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. And iniquity, once again, is spoken of all through Leviticus, speaking of made atonement for your sin. Iniquities is the word avon. Now, what we're going to do is when we read the so-called New Testament or the gospel, we see all through the scriptures this playing itself out. Now, what my brother is, unfortunately, what he's doing, let me see what we have. Let me go back. All right, this is where I'm going to start because, like I was saying, I don't know if you know, y'all heard when I was speaking of this. That's why, you know, I'm going to repeat it. But I basically just started off with Isaiah 53, and I didn't even start my opening because I know the brothers and sisters heard that. But the problem with what my brother's doing right here is he's putting the cart before the horse. And like I say, it's his position that Yahweh's sacrifice doesn't follow the rituals of animal sacrifice in Torah, therefore it is not a sacrifice. What the Torah teaches us, it teaches us the proper order of the understanding of the sacrifice, where my brother's position is one of disorder and misunderstanding. Now, he's gonna, which is surprisingly, he's gonna, I guess, try to deny the credibility of Hebrews 10. But basically
That's your
what
time right
Hebrews
there, brother.
10,
That's your time.
all right.
Okay, peace, family. But this is the rebuttal round, and real quick, I just want to stipulate. My brother seems to be extremely shocked that I adhere to the Quran and have a different concept of how Jesus works. Um, I assure you, most Muslims do not believe in blood sacrifice or vampire salvation. Um, that concept is not there. In Islam, in the Torah, and also in the New Testament, you will see righteousness being the standard of salvation, not blood sacrifice. Even in the Greek and English of the New Testament that you read, Gideon, it says the same concept. And it's talking about literal and figurative the whole time. Hence, you cannot die daily on a cross like Christ says to do, and you cannot make yourself a living sacrifice every day like Paul says to do. It's got to be figurative. Got to be figurative. So moving on, my brother was just talking about, like, peep this Jedi mind trick, okay? He just said that I need to show him a different ASHAM sacrifice. No, I don't. I'm saying the ASHAM in Isaiah 53 has to be figurative because there's no other ASHAM described anywhere. There's not another ASHAM given to another prophet anywhere that describes what you're describing as lawful, as literal and lawful. So if you want to tell me that it's a literal ASHAM, you have to provide to me the evidence via the scrolls of the Most High giving this law to a prophet, i.e. a Melchizedek one. Hence, you keep saying that the Levitical law is lesser and that the Melchizedek law is the greater law. Show me the Melchizedek ASHAM that breaks down what you're talking about. If you can't, then you have to stop stipulating that I don't understand what I'm talking about and have to accept that you don't understand what you're talking about. You can't prove what you're saying. You literally cannot. You're going back to Exodus, Leviticus, and then trying to jump to Matthew. Okay, show me the prophet. Show me the words of what prophet. Give me the name of the prophet. Give me the scripture in which they break down this law of this ASHAM where a human being's blood can be used, where a human body can be used. And now jumping back to the old law, you were just talking about the fact that he was bruised left, right, and center. According to the Levitical law, which you say is the lesser law, in Leviticus 22 and 24, it says, ye shall not offer unto the Lord that which is bruised or crushed or broken or cut. Neither shall ye make any offering thereof in your land. You cannot use a bruised sacrifice. That is a blemish. And if you want to say that he was not blemished physically, he was blemished spiritually, that is figurative language. When you get into that verse, that word there can be used figuratively. It can mean to be physically bruised, or it can mean to be contrite or made humble. If you want to say he's contrite or humble, I can agree with you there. If you want to even say he's a literal ASHAM, because you have not proven that. You cannot prove that. You will not prove that. There is no law given to another prophet that cites such. But even if you want to say he's such, he cannot be, again, this is why he cannot be a literal ASHAM, because a literal ASHAM cannot be bruised, it cannot be human. But if here's the other ASHAM that you're talking about, I'm going to cite the same thing. His soul being made an offering for sin. His soul being made an offering for sin. That's the other ASHAM. That's the only other ASHAM mentioned. And it doesn't say it literally because it gives no literal law. None whatsoever. And again, I'm going to cite this like this. This breaks down the method of the death within the scroll itself. Isaiah 53:12 says this, therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. And he was numbered with the transgressors, and bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. Now, that's the manner of his death. He poured out his soul unto death. This is said multiple times, not about death, but pouring out the soul in the Old Testament, in the Torah, in the Tanakh. Nowhere when someone is pouring out their soul is a drop of blood let anywhere. Anywhere. In 1 Samuel 1:15, it reads, and Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. She's pouring out her soul to the Lord. She's talking about being of a sorrowful spirit. Just like in the bruised concept, it says, those who are of a broken heart and a contrite spirit. Again, the figurative concept to what bruised is. Those of a broken heart and a contrite spirit. These are the offerings. These are the sacrifices of the Most High. This is what a Melchizedek priest says, King David. This is what he says in his scriptures. Moving forward, Job 30, verse 16. And now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of the affliction have taken hold upon me. Again, not a single drop of blood coming from Job because his soul was poured out upon him. Not a single solitary drop. Lamentations 2:12. They say to their mothers, where is corn and wine? When they swooned as the wounded in the streets of the city, when their soul was poured out into their mother's bosom. You got hungry kids, right? Hollering at the moms, I'm hungry. Screaming in the chest of their parents, I'm hungry. You got wailing people. Nowhere are you seeing a drop of blood anywhere. Not a single solitary drop of blood anywhere. Watch. Next, my man's going to try to jump to this image right here. He's going to try to jump to the imagery of a lamb. Right? In verse 7, he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before the shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. He's going to say that right there. That makes him the Lamb of God, this, that, and the third. He just tried to tell you that sacrifice is in the chapter. No, it's not. Let's be real about it. Slaughter is not sacrifice. That word used there in Isaiah 53:7, brought as a lamb to the slaughter. H2874. Tabak means properly something slaughtered, hence a beast or meat as butchered, abstractly butchery, or concretely a place of slaughter. A slaughterhouse, beast, slaughter, slay, soul, right? Slaughter is not sacrifice. Sacrifice is sacrificed. Stop taking linguistic liberties with the text. H2017, zabak. That is the word for sacrifice. Properly, a slaughter, i.e. the flesh of an animal, by implication, a sacrifice, the victim of the act offering sacrifice. And this word is used in Leviticus 4, speaking about ASHAM sacrifices. In verse 26, verse 31, and verse 35. And he shall burn all his fat upon the altar as the fat of the sacrifice of the peace offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him as concerning his sin, and it shall be forgiven. 31. And he shall take away all the fat thereof as the fat is taken away from off the sacrifice of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it upon the altar for a sweet savor unto the Lord. And the priest shall make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. Verse 35, and he shall take away all the fat thereof, as the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice. Again, all this time it says sacrifice. That's the word zabak, H2077. Nowhere, again, of the peace offering, the priest shall burn them upon the altar according to the offering made by fire unto the Lord, and the priest shall make an atonement for his sin that he hath committed, and it shall be forgiven him. Nowhere is this word said anywhere in the chapter. Anywhere. And again, a man cannot be a literal lamb or a literal sheep. That language there is pointing to something figurative. It's pointing, obviously, because a man can't be either. What is it pointing to? He opened not his mouth. He opened not his mouth. It said twice. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter. First and foremost, that word slaughter does not mean sacrifice. Second of all, when you lead a lamb somewhere, they're still alive. They're not dead anywhere. There's no blood right there. And when you lead them, he's opening not his mouth because he doesn't know he's going to slaughter. Doesn't understand that. He just thinks he's walking somewhere. And a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So is a sheep getting sheared part of a sacrifice anywhere? I'll wait. No, of course not. It's imagery. The sheep being dumb before the shearer says is pointing to he opened not his mouth. Said twice, he opened not his mouth. He opened not his mouth. And if you are a Christian or a Messianic, you understand that Jesus or Yeshua stood in front of Pilate and in front of the Jewish people, the Jewish priests and the scribes, etc., and said nothing, silent. That's my time, family.
All right, shalom. That was the brother Tavon Swain L, the Orthodox Moor, getting into his understanding of the Hebrew scriptures. So what we're going to do is, like I said, the problem that the brother is having is, unfortunately, he's putting two before one when it's one then two. He's saying, where in the scripture can we find the explanation of Yeshua's sacrifice or the sacrifice being talked about in Isaiah 53? Because he's the one conflating two positions. He's taken the Isaiah 53 to not be a literal sacrifice and using Yeshua's death as the evidence against it. whereas he should just be going to the strictly reading of Isaiah 53 if he does not believe in Yeshua, but he does believe in Yeshua. So that's kind of a conundrum. He's a Muslim. He says they have the Quran and Muslims don't believe in blood sacrifice. And what does that have to do with an Israelite? I don't know. But let's understand one thing. When we go to Exodus 25, Exodus 26, Exodus 27, he's telling Moses how to make the whole temple, the altar, the tabernacle, the menorah, what's in the courtyard, everything that has to do with atonement and worship of the Most High. This is what he told him. He said, all of these things you should rear up according to the pattern which I showed you on the mount. So when we go to Hebrews 10, verse 1, it says, for the law of the priests having a shadow of good things to come and not the very image of the things. Once again, for the law of the priests having a shadow of good things to come and not the very image of the things could never with those sacrifices which they offered every year continually make anyone perfect. So when this brother see, he keep asking himself, where do we see this in the Old Testament? We have the example and we have the precedent for it right there in Exodus 25, 26, 27. And also he keeps asking, where is this covenant or where is this sacrifice? I forgot how he said it. Where in the old covenant is the need for blood to be shed? Well, when we get into the discussion, I'm gonna basically explain to the brother that there is no covenant, there is no sin, nowhere in the Old Testament where no blood is shed. Let's go to let's see. Want to go to Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah 1. Let's start at Isaiah 1. Isaiah verse 1. I'm sorry, Isaiah chapter 1. Let's start at verse. Start at 10. Hear ye the word of Yah, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our Elohim, you people of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, says Yahweh? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bulls or of lambs or of he-goats. Now, let's go to, I want to say that's going to be Micah. Micah, let's see. Go back, let me see. Let's say. That's gonna be matter of fact, let's go to Zechariah 9 because I don't think that's what I need. Let's go to Zechariah 9 and all right, let's start at verse 9. Now this is definitely also a prophecy of that coming king. It says, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just, having salvation, lowly, and riding upon an ass, and upon a coat, the foal of an ass. Let's go to 11. As for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein there is no water. So we see right here, this is speaking of the blood of the covenant that the king that's coming on an ass will establish. And when we go to, let's see what I want to go after this. Matter of fact, let's go to the one where we first tell our brothers about the blood of Yahshua and its importance, because he kept asking me, where does it speak of this blood of the ASHAM sacrifice? Well, when we go to Jeremiah 31, we all know chapter 31 speaks of this new covenant. And once again, I'm going to have to ask him to show me where is in the ASHAM that has blood where no blood is spilt, and also to show me where there is a covenant where no blood is spilled. Because according to Israelite texts, blood is required for both of those things when blood is present or when flesh is present. Now, let's go to Hebrews chapter 9. How much time I got? Orthodox.
3 minutes on the dot.
All right, 3 minutes. All right. Now, we see that verse 1, it says, verily, the first covenant had ordinance of divine service and the worldly sanctuary. Now, for there was a tabernacle made, the first one was called the candlestick, the table, the showbread, the sanctuary, the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all. And it's speaking, and like I was saying, of all the things that was in the temple. So we know that the author of Hebrews, who I say is Paul, is not lying when he's speaking of these things. And when he said that in verse 9, it says that all of these things was a figure for the time then present, in which were offered both gift and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and drinks and different washings and cardinal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation. But Yahshua becoming the high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So we see, like I was saying, in Exodus 25, 26, and 27, all of those things that Paul is talking about in Hebrews 9, it will show after a pattern of things to be dead on earth. Those things was just a shadow. So the witness in Exodus is speaking of that. And also when we go to, let's go to something I read that kind of struck me and I wanted to go to it. Yeah, let's go to Acts 20. And I'm speaking to this brother because I want him to refute what these scriptures that I'm bringing forward. Now, if this brother was one that said he didn't believe in Yahshua, then you know this would be a different discussion. But this brother believes in the gospel. So, like I say, I'm rather waiting until we get to this Q&A, because you know I do have some questions how you get this understanding. But let's go to Acts. Let's go to Acts 20, and I'm gonna start at let me see, 25. Let's start at 25. And now, behold, I know that ye all, among whom I have gone preaching the kingdom of Yah, shall see my face no more. Wherefore I take you to record this day that I'm pure from the blood of all men. 28. Take heed therefore unto yourselves and to all the flock over the which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers, to feed the church of Yah, which he hath purchased with his own blood. So with that, I'm going to yield my time. Blood is all over the ASHAM sacrifice and the covenant, and with that I yield.
Okay, family, we are now going into the rapid fire round. First, we will be doing 7 minutes apiece of interrogation, and then we will move into a 15-minute freestyle exchange where we'll be asking one question apiece, and maybe just we'll freestyle a little bit more. We'll see. After that, we'll have 5-minute closeouts for each of us. So first, real quick, let me get this set up for Gideon, because Gideon will be going first since I gave the intro. And so whenever you're ready, bro.
All right, cool. Can I be heard? Did I put it on mute? I'm not sure. Let me check. All right, now we good. We good. All right, so let's see what we got here, man. Have a few questions I want to ask you. Now, which do you believe we're still under a covenant, and which one do you believe we're still in?
There's only one covenant.
Which is the one that was given to us in Exodus?
No, because it says in Jeremiah 31 that law got to change, right? And explains what the basis of that is and what the new law will look like, right? That everybody will die for their own sin, etc., right? Which is why this sounds curious to me as to why someone else is supposed to die for me, right? But that covenant we're under is the Noahide covenant, right? Which specifies in Genesis 9 verse 4 that you cannot consume the life or the blood of an animal, right?
Okay, all right, that's cool. That's cool. So now my next question to you is, in Isaiah 53 verse 10, it says his soul will be made in ASHAM. And ASHAM is an offering, right, for sin, right? And anywhere present, whatever is being sacrificed, or if the thing that's being sacrificed, if it has blood, the blood is going to be spilt, correct?
100%.
All right. So when you say that in Isaiah 53 verse 10, when it's saying his soul shall be made in ASHAM, and we see that he has a body that possesses blood, I don't know if you didn't come to that realization before you came to this debate, but if you still believe that, that's a contradiction. And can you explain to me how it's not a contradiction, being that in the ASHAM that has blood in his veins, that blood is spilled?
Because literally it says that his nefesh was made an offering for sin. The soul does not contain any blood.
Right, right. So once again, like I said, we both agree that what it's saying is that he's going to be made an offering, and he, with his soul, has flesh. So how are you getting around the fact that he has flesh? He still has flesh. He died. So do you believe he died on the cross and was scourged and was bruised?
So if he was scourged and bruised, he cannot be in ASHAM, be the Levitical law. I do believe he was scourged and bruised, which is why I don't believe he can be in ASHAM, be the Levitical law.
Okay. Now, you do know the word for bruised in Isaiah 53 is different from the word bruised that's used in Leviticus. You know the word that's used for bruised in Leviticus?
What's the word that's used for bruised in Leviticus?
I think it's makkah. And I got it right here, actually. The word for bruised in Leviticus is umak. And that's different from what's used in Isaiah 53, which is dakal, which means to humble and oppress and to destroy. And also, what you got to realize,
also to bruise, it has a literal and figurative meaning, does it not?
Well, you can also mean bruise within that also, but that does not mean.
Just be clear for the people, because now they want to scripture.
Right.
So be honest for the people and let them know that it has a literal, when you read it, literal and figurative meaning.
Right.
So you're saying right now you're choosing to illustrate the figurative over the literal.
This is what we got to understand. You're using the word ma'ak, and you're using that. You're applying it to Isaiah 53, but you're wrong when you're doing that, because the word in Isaiah 53 is not ma'ak, is the akal.
So are you saying, just to be clear, are you just so I can understand how you're saying, because you're saying I'm wrong in application. So if you're saying he's literally bruised, then I'm not wrong in application, because it either has a literal or figurative meaning. If he's literally bruised, the reason why it's a different word is because it has a figurative meaning to it like that, right? So if it's literal, then it has to fall under the literal concept. And so if it's either literally bruising or not literally bruising.
He was literally scourged. That word daka.
Okay, so if you're saying he's, hold on. So if I'm explaining my answer to your question. If you're saying then that he was literally bruised, then I'm saying there's no way he can be a literal ASHAM, because via Leviticus 22:24, you cannot bring a bruised sacrifice.
Okay, now that's
not possible. So that's why I keep saying you have to show me the law where you can bring a bruised sacrifice. Right. You have not done so.
Nah. But the thing is, Yeshua was not a bruised sacrifice. Let's go to it.
Okay, so you just said hold on. I gotta be clear. So you're saying that it is Yeshua in 53, Isaiah 53, correct?
Right.
And you're saying that he was literally bruised in Isaiah 53, correct?
Right.
But you're saying that Jesus was not literally bruised. You just got me hella confused, because you said you believed he was scourged, but you don't believe he was bruised. So what are you saying to me?
Look, when I'm saying he was scourged, this is what I'm saying. I believed he was. Let's go to the word. I believe he was daka. He was not ma'ak. Ma'ak, that's in Leviticus, speaking of a sacrifice that is infirmed, that is emasculated, or it has.
To help me answer your question the best I can you tell me the difference between the bruisings? Because I'm saying that he's literally bruised, and if he's literally bruised, he can't be that. You're saying he's literally bruised and he's not literally bruised, because there's a different word being used to literally bruised.
Right. Now see, and again, this is what I was saying in my opening. You're having a disorder. You're out of order, and you're not understanding the proper order. When Yeshua was scourged, bruised, when he was beat to pieces, it only happened after he was brought to the high priest. When you go to verses like Mark 14, or you go to Matthew 26, I think it is, it's always going to tell you that he was brought before the high priest, and that's a Levitical law. It's in let's go to Leviticus 3. It says if his offering is a burnt, let's go to Leviticus 1 and 3. It says, if his offering is a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own free will at the door of the tabernacle of meeting before Yahweh. Then he shall put his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement. Then he shall kill the bull before Yahweh and the priest, Aaron's sons, and bring the blood and sprinkle it all about. So we see all through the scripture, in all of the gospels, every time the only time he is beaten is after he is brought before the high priest, and before that time he is never beaten, which makes him a perfect and unblemished sacrifice. That's what you need to understand, the proper order of things. Now let me ask you this question right here. Let me go back. I think I may got a little question list I got for you. Let's see. Now, when we go to Isaiah 53, let's go back to verse. So I'm gonna pull it up.
So that is your time, brother.
Hold on, let me just ask you this one question, because I just want.
Go ahead, get it in. You actually got longer than 7 minutes, but go ahead.
Right. Now, this word "mot," when we go to verse 9, You
Mm-hmm.
do you know what that word is when it says when he was with the rich in his debt?
How about you explain it to us, brother?
That literally means debt. And when you use the verse in, I think that was Second Samuel you was talking about, when it says pouring out his soul does not mean debt. I totally agree with you, bro. But where you're being, I don't want to say dishonest, but you're not revealing the whole thing is he poured out his soul unto death, bro. That's like
That,
me saying,
that's what I said was the manner of his death. Was he pouring out his soul? What I said was, just to clarify, what I said was that people pouring out their soul, there's not a drop of blood anywhere when it
right,
happens.
but if you're pouring out your soul unto death, that's a whole lot different. That's like saying you can cry, but you cry until you die. That's two different things. So that's all I want to know. What was your position on that, Mott? But go ahead, bro.
So yeah, my position was that the manner of death. So again, as we read, so as a Muslim, right, and of Israelite descent, I believe this concept right here. The manner of death was him pouring out his soul unto death. No bloodletting, right? Just as it says, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit, then gave up the ghost. And like it says in the Quran, right? Neither did they. Those that say they killed Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. Neither did they kill him, nor did they crucify him, but it was made to appear so. But Allah raised him to himself. So as you believe, he says, I will lay down my life and raise it back up again. Spiritual, soul concept, poured out the soul unto death. I'm with you. Again, in the other three instances I showed you, no one pouring out their soul, Job, Hannah, or their children into their mother's bosoms. There's not a drop of blood between the three groups.
Well,
That's
see,
why, and it's showing
you're
wailing.
not being
It's
scripturally
showing
honest,
wailing.
right?
Huh?
You're not being scripturally honest because you keep saying you believe in Yahshua, but you're saying as a Muslim. But as a Muslim, you're interpreting the scriptures wrong because the one that believes in Yahshua, when it says he was wounded in verse 5 for our transgression, he was bruised for our iniquities. We
Mm-hmm.
as believers in Yahshua, we should immediately go to Matthew 26 and we see when they were spitting in his face and they beat him after they brought him before the high priest. We can go to places like Mark, like 13, no, chapter 14. Let's go to Mark 14:61. I got it right here.
So you just said something extremely arrogant. We as believers in Yahshua. So are you saying that the 1.5 billion Muslims out there don't believe in Isa alayhi salam?
If they don't believe what it says in Acts 20, verse 28, let me get it for you, bro. Because that's what I'm saying.
So you're saying unless Muslims consider Paul a prophet of the Most High, they don't believe in Jesus. Got it, Coach?
Correct. And you don't believe in the gospel, bro. Because look what the gospel say.
No, just so you understand, just so you're clear about it. No, hold on, just so you're clear about how Muslims believe it. Hold, we got to clear some up real quick, just so you understand how Muslims believe this, right? So all the Israelite prophets that they recognize are mentioned in the Quran. Paul is not mentioned once. Isa is. Yep.
Right. But this was y'all say Isa. Y'all say Isa was born of Joseph. And you're saying that and what the Muslims say is that Yahweh has no children. And Yahshua is the son of Yahweh Elohim.
So what it says, there's
there's
no Muslim. Hold on. So just so we can clear up your ignorance on it, just so we can clear up your ignorance on it, there's no Muslim on the face of the planet that will tell you that Jesus is not the spiritual son of God. Every Muslim will tell you he can't be the physical son of God.
That's what I'm saying. He was the physical manifestation of Yahweh Elohim.
Okay, that's your understanding, brother. That's your understanding. But you have to understand something. So just so you understand, as an Israelite, so I'm not even in my time yet. As an Israelite, right? As an Israelite, there's no ancient or mid-ancient Israelite culture that says what you say. That's a Christian thing and a modern one at that.
Which is what? What is what I say?
What is the Israelite tradition about Jesus?
There is no tradition
where's
Jesus.
Where's Jesus mentioned by name as a coming prophet?
Jesus is not
in
a
the Torah and the
prophet.
Tanakh. So Jesus is not a prophet. So Paul is a prophet.
Just to save you the time, bro, I don't recognize Yeshua, bro. I go by Exodus chapter 20. You know, thou shalt hallow my name. I go by Yeshua. That's who I associate my salvation with. So when you say Jesus, I'm liable to say, you know, like I don't believe in that.
Okay,
But
I can say Isa, Yahweh, whomever, right? Whatever name you want to call it by, right? Whatever name you want to call it by. There's no Israel. There's no Israelite culture.
Do you want to switch to your time, or is this still my time? Because I need to ask.
This is our 15 minutes right now. I'm about to have my 7 minutes when we're done with this one, because we're all, you know what I'm saying? Or do you want to go 17 and 15 or 7 and 15?
It's however you want to do. I just want to ask you, how do you interpret Acts 20:28 being a Muslim who does not believe that Yeshua's blood was the sacrifice? Acts 20:28, it says, therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock among which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to shepherd the church of Yah, which he purchased with his own blood. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you cannot have this position that you're having.
Like I just told you, and you didn't catch it. Paul is not mentioned as a prophet in the Quran for Muslims or for Israelites. The last Israelite prophet mentioned in the Quran for Israelites is Isa alayhi salam. So you ain't even cited Jesus saying what you're talking about. You said, hold on, no. So you asked me how I interpreted it. You asked me how I interpreted it as a Muslim. So now I'm gonna give you my interpretation. Easy, brother. You asked me for my interpretation. Now you're gonna get the interpretation. So 3 times. Hold on. Easy. You don't consider Jesus a prophet. Muslims consider Jesus a prophet. We give him that respect. So we hold Jesus above Paul. That's what you don't understand. That's what you don't understand.
Before you get down the wrong lane,
so I'm going to explain my interpretation, like you asked Gideon, fall back, because you asked me a question. You know you did. Gideon, fall back. You asked me a question.
I do not recognize Jesus, bro.
Gideon, fall back. I heard you say that. Okay, Yahshua. You can't show me Yahshua nowhere in the damn Greek.
Right.
Nowhere. Exactly. Show me nowhere. Okay then. So since you agree, I'm gonna finish and give you my interpretation as a Muslim, because as a Muslim, I consider Isa alayhi salam a prophet, not Paul.
But you know,
Isa alayhi salam said, "You gonna let me say my interpretation?" Isa alayhi salam said 3. Isa said 3 times. If I gotta mute you, I will. If I gotta mute you, I will. Gideon, if I gotta mute you, I will. You gonna let me answer the question? You gonna let me answer the question? So Isa alayhi salam says 3 times, this is the blood of the New Testament. And every single solitary time, it's grape juice or wine in a cup. It's not literal. If it's seen as literal, then Jesus is a vampire and all his other people are vampires and cannibals, because they're supposed to be eating his flesh as the bread of heaven and drinking his blood. But that does not happen. It's figurative language. Just like Melchizedek gives bread and wine. Jesus offered bread and wine. That's simple, bruh. Figurative language. Go.
So, okay. All right. Now, what's simple, bro, is, like I said, you're cherry picking scripture. Because when we go to Isaiah 53, now you gotta draw the line in the sand. Do you believe in Yeshua and the Gospels, or you don't? Either get in the
100%. You seem to believe Paul over Jesus. You blaspheme on Jesus. You don't believe in him. You don't believe in Yeshua. You believe in Paul.
Okay. So I'm asking, how am I picking Paul over Yeshua when it was Yeshua himself in Luke who said that he must suffer these things that all scripture might be fulfilled? Speaking of his
I'm not mad at you, brother. I agree with you. I'm right there with you.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, when I listen to you,
he's the Messiah, brother, man. I don't disagree. In the Quran, it stipulates he's al-Masih. He's the Messiah. The question is it a literal or figurative ASHAM?
Okay, listen what I'm saying, bro. Listen what I'm saying. If Yeshua says,
You want to have a who's the Messiah debate? I'm down. You want to have a
no.
who's the righteous servant? I'm down. Any day of the
But
week.
see,
The
no,
question on the floor, brother, is what is it? Is it a literal or figurative ASHAM?
Right. This is why it went to is Yeshua this ASHAM, because for one,
because you can't prove it, bro. No, I'm taking my 7 minutes because you
listen. This is what I'm saying. What you're trying to do, because you're an intelligent brother, you're taking yourself and you're basically putting Crisco grease all over your body because you're not holding to a position. You call yourself a Muslim,
bruh. I'm the only one holding to a position. You're the one trying to cite the biblical law like it's Melchizedek law.
And when it's
so this is what we're gonna do, right?
And when you have, listen what I'm saying. No. So what I'm asking you is, how and by what authority do you have to cherry pick the scripture? How can you take and put out Luke 7, and how can you take and put out Acts 20 and 28? How can you do that?
I honestly tell you up front, as a Muslim, I accept the Torah, I accept the Zabur, I accept the Injil, right? And again, as a Muslim, I told you, Paul is not a prophet of Israel in the Quran. So I don't take from Paul as a prophet.
We have a problem.
Okay, so what Israelite, what Jewish community in the history of the world recognized Paul as a prophet?
Listen what I'm saying.
What Jewish community in the history of the world recognizes Paul as a prophet?
But they don't recognize Yeshua as a savior. So what credence does that hold with me, bro?
What African? What people that look like you and me? What African community that's Israelite claims Jesus or claims Paul as a prophet?
And what Yeshua? Okay.
What African culture of Israelites claims Paul as a prophet?
Who is? Wait, what you just said? Repeat that.
What African culture of Israelites claims Paul as a prophet?
Okay, bro. As a Muslim, let me explain and assure you of something. Paul was a preacher to the Gentiles. He was not a preacher to the Israelites. So the books that was given to the Israelites.
So I'm an Israelite. So why are you talking to me about Paul? Why are you wasting my time, your time, and every Israelite's time about Paul if Paul's not speaking to us?
Because in the book of Hebrews, Paul is speaking to us.
You just said he wasn't speaking to us, so now you lying on Paul and yourself.
Okay, but let's just go back to the what we're talking about, because if you can't understand in Isaiah 53 is talking about a literal sacrifice, you definitely won't understand what Paul is talking about. Peter himself.
Okay, bro. Check this out. Check this out. If you want me to understand it's a literal sacrifice, all you have to do is something really simple. Cite a law given to a prophet of the Most High that says it is a literal sacrifice. And it can be a sacrifice because the previous law says it obviously cannot be.
Bro, when I just taken you to not only Jeremiah 31, where, like I say, show me one covenant that's made in the Old Testament.
Jeremiah 31. Okay, you said show you one covenant. I will show you. I will show you. I will show you the covenant. I will show you the covenant.
Show me
okay, you just said I will do so. I will do so. 100%. And I don't even got to go to the New Testament. It's real simple. Jeremiah 31 verses 29 and 30. Stop starting the whole chapter at 31. Go up a little bit. Go up a little bit. It tells you, no longer shall it be said in these days that the parents eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. No. The mark of this covenant is that every soul that sins, it shall die. And then I can see this explained. And you're talking about when did it come? This is when the Most High spoke to a prophet of the Most High and said thus in Ezekiel chapter 18. You go through the first 4 verses. He breaks down. Where did you get this saying? I did not give it to you. Therefore, you shall no longer say that the parents eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. All souls are mine, and the soul that sinneth, it shall die. And then it goes on to say that when a soul that when you're doing transgressions, you can stop, and because of the power of your mind, you can consider, and you can stop and choose to do righteousness and save your own soul alive. Not a single drop of blood in Ezekiel 18, not a single drop of blood in Jeremiah 31. Call me or the text a liar, I dare you.
Okay, I'm calling you. You're not answering my question. I need for you to show me where this is saying this is the new covenant of Jeremiah 31.
Jeremiah 31, verses 31
right
through
here.
34, if you want to be technical with it. You want me to read it straight out for you?
I thought I was technical enough.
You just that's what I'm saying. Right?
Jeremiah 31 is speaking of the new covenant. So when I'm asking
and where is it saying it's going to be marked by blood? Because I just read where it's going to be marked by every soul dying for its own sin, not this vicarious vampirism you just brought up.
No, see, you're placing the new covenant right here. So I'm asking you, what specifically does it say this is the new covenant and this is the implementation of it? Because
it says that the law will be on the inside. That you will have the law inside of you. You will be the walking embodiment thereof.
Right. Now, I'm not talking about the stipulations of the covenant, Brother Moore. My Muslim brother. It's stipulations to it, but it's also a sealing of a covenant. In the sealing of a covenant.
So where's the blood anywhere in Jeremiah 31?
When they say covenant, bro. Look, let me go.
So what word there means blood? What word in the Hebrew means blood? What Hebrew word for blood in the entire? You got two chapters, right? This is real simple. My head is on the chopping block, and you got two big swings with the axe, right? Here's two swings right here. You got the entire chapter of Ezekiel 18, the entire chapter of Jeremiah 31. Where's the blood marking the covenant saving the soul?
Look, let's go to because you still don't want to answer the plainness of the question that I'm asking you.
I answered it directly, bro. It's over your head.
Yeah, right. You still.
Okay, so all you gotta do, big boy, gotta do is show me anywhere in these two chapters where blood is mentioned as the mark of the covenant. Because you calling the text and the prophets liars, not me. Bruh, I didn't write the book.
Bro, we go to Jeremiah, we go to Exodus. We see that those covenants were sealed with blood. Jeremiah.
Show me. You telling me? Show me. Show me what verse. The entire chapter of 31 in Jeremiah. What verse says it's sealed with blood? I'm waiting for it. Right, teach me. Teach me.
Right, let me teach my Muslim brother. Let's go to Jeremiah 31, verse. Let's go to 34. My 34 verse 17, I think it is.
And when we're done with this, I'm taking my 7 minutes, bro.
8. Let's go to 18.
Okay.
No, let's start. Therefore, thus says Yah, you have not hearkened unto me and proclaim a liberty, every one to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, says Yahweh. To the sword, to the pestilence, to the famine, I will make you be removed into all kingdoms of the earth. And I will give the men that have transgressed my covenant, which have not performed the words of the covenant which they had made before me, when they cut the calf in twain and passed between the parts thereof. So basically, bro, when you read Isaiah 53 and you make the statements about you don't see sacrifice or atonement and none of that, that's like you reading verse 18 right here and saying you don't see no blood. It don't speak of no blood, but it's talking about the covenant and the calf cut in two. So I guess you don't see no blood right there neither.
Only if you're talking about him being in Levitical, ASHAM, but you're saying he can't be because he's a human being, not a ram, not a lamb, not a turtle dove, not a pigeon.
Jeremiah 34, verse 18. Is it blood right there?
Tell me about it. Where's the marking the covenant you're talking about?
I'm asking you, is there blood in verse 18?
Let me look at it real quick.
Because what you're doing is you're playing with words. Like I say, man, you're trying to advance by having a slippery position. You cannot be a believer in Yahshua and disavow certain parts of the New Testament, bro.
Of course I can. What are you talking about? Again,
It'll make
there's
you
a
sound
billion
smart,
five
but only
Muslims that
so
don't
much,
believe
bro.
like you believe and
Because it
claim
gets to the
Esau.
point where it gets to certain parts in the scripture, like Isaiah 53 and 9 through 10, where
So
it's showing blood in it, like
watch
it's
this.
showing
Is
in
Isaiah a
verse
prophet?
18.
Is Isaiah a prophet?
So basically,
Is Isaiah a prophet to Israelites? Watch this.
very much so.
Is
Very much
is
so. But
is
I need you. I'm waiting
okay?
for you to answer verse 18.
Is
Because
Yahshua a prophet? You just said
according to your
you said
understanding,
you said
verse
Yahshua wasn't a prophet, so
18,
I shouldn't even
you
take
should
what he's
have
saying at all.
you should have the same answer for verse 18 in Jeremiah
Watch.
34 that
Now
you
I'm going
do
to read
for
the whole verse
Isaiah
for the people. Watch.
53:10.
Jeremiah
You should have the
31:18. I
same
have
answer.
surely heard
And if you
Ephraim
don't have the
bemoaning
same
himself
answer,
thus.
that means you being disingenuous and you truly cherry
I'm
picking.
reading the verse for the
Truly.
people, if you don't mind. I'm going to read the verse for the people. Jeremiah
Yeah, go ahead.
31:18. I have surely heard Ephraim bemoaning himself thus. Thou hast chastised me as I was chastised as a bullock unaccustomed to the yoke. Turn thou me, and I shall be turned, for thou art the Lord my God. Now again, this is called imagery, people.
Reading,
Like or as is a metaphor.
It's gonna be at
Watch.
34,
Thou
bro.
hast
So you get
chastised
it
me,
out.
and I was chastised as a bullock, unaccustomed to a yoke. So is Ephraim actually a bull wearing a yoke? Yes or no?
Bro, you're making yourself look bad by trying to get context. You're reading yourself way out of context. But go ahead, bro.
So a simple question, is Ephraim a literal bull? Yes or no?
My brother, I'm asking you about Jeremiah 34:18, bro. You way in left field somewhere, bro.
You said 34 and 18?
Right. Jeremiah 34 and 18.
Okay, so you're supposed to be in 31 showing me where there's blood. So I'm in 31, 18. Why are you playing games?
No, I read 34 and 18. I said 34.
Okay, so what? So since you're wasting everybody's time, because everyone heard that you're supposed to go to Jeremiah
it's on
31
playback.
in that chapter.
I say 34. Go, it's on playback. I said 34. 34 and
Good
18.
money. Okay, so you should have been talking about 31 because that's what the new covenant's at, right?
No.
Yes or no?
Okay, that's why we was on 31, because you were still in the covenant that he was talking about. I'm asking you about the implementation of that covenant. So I'm asking you, show me a covenant where there is
so
no
your claim is, hold on, your claim is that Jeremiah 34 is the your claim is that Jeremiah 34 is the implementation of Jeremiah 31.
No. Oh man,
So what's the point? So what's the point of you bringing Jeremiah 34? Because I'm beyond confused now.
Is that how you come back from the dead? I'm asking you to show me anywhere in scripture. I asked you, where is that new covenant being implemented at? Then you went to Ezekiel,
right?
Show something way out of context that was basically just
so bring it, read it in context. If I'm so juvenile, my arguments are so juvenile, put it in context. Teach the people. What's Ezekiel 18 in context? Where's the blood? Because like I said, my head's on the chopping block, and I gave you 2 swings at the axe, and you won't even take the swings. Right? All you got to do is show blood anywhere in the chapter of 31 in Jeremiah and anywhere in the chapter of 18 in Ezekiel, and my head's taken off. You can't do it.
Bro, you're asking a question that is not pertaining to what we're trying to get to the matter of.
Okay. So
Jeremiah 31, let's do it like this. Jeremiah 31 is speaking of a new covenant. Have you ever seen, and I can understand if you haven't, because you say you're a Muslim who interprets scripture. So have you ever seen any
covenant? Bro, you're not even Israelite, you're a Christian. Like, so first of all, stop insulting me and call yourself an Israelite. You're a Christian.
No,
you ain't Israelite, you're a Christian. You're a Christian.
So you can call yourself a Muslim, but I can't call you a Muslim.
I call myself a Muslim of Israelite descent. I don't call myself a Christian.
Right. So
I'm not gonna lie to the people and say I'm an Israelite and I believe in Christianity. I ain't gonna do that to the people. I'm gonna tell you I'm a Muslim of Israelite descent. I uphold the Torah and the Quran. Right. I uphold the teachings of Isa alayhi salam, not Paul.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna be dead honest, like to everybody up front, right? You gonna say you're an Israelite, but I believe in the teachings of Yahshua as brought by the Greeks and the Christians. You can't even cite not one African culture of people of Israelites that says anything you're talking about.
Brothers and sisters, y'all remember Star Wars, right? Back in the 80s, it only got better and better. We supposed to be doing a three-part debate. So I'm slowly but surely gonna unravel the heresy of my brother doctrine, and I'm praying that he get out of it. And like I say, how can
You got one more question to do it before I take my 7 minutes. So go ahead, make it a good question.
Right. So what I'm asking you, Brother Moore, is show me the implementation of the covenant in Jeremiah 31. And what I'm saying is how you're slippery, because if you believe in Yeshua, he was the one that ushered in the new covenant.
Show you.
But I don't know how and what degree you believe in Yeshua.
To show you for the second time. So as somebody who respects the concept of Ezekiel, he tells them, no longer shall the people have the will be the fact that no longer shall the saying be said. You get that repeated again in Ezekiel 18. And then it says in that whole chapter, right? All souls are mine. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Just like it says in Jeremiah 31. And then it goes on to say that when you consider what you've done and you turn to righteousness and you turn to the Most High, that you can save your own soul alive. No blood sacrifice necessary anywhere of an animal or a human being. Not literal, anywhere in that chapter.
All right. You done? You done, Brother Moore? All right, now check this out. This is the problem with what you just said. According to the covenant that was made with Abraham, according to the covenant that was made with Moses, all of those covenants, bro, had blood involved in it. And the verse that you're giving me in Ezekiel is not sufficient. It's found lacking, because I need for you to show me when this covenant was implemented. They had several covenants that they had in the Bible. Every time it was implemented, they had a ceremony. What is your ceremony, my Muslim brother? That's what I'm saying. Like,
so what law is given to a non-prophet of Israel? How does this work? Because you're saying that Yeshua is not a prophet, and that Paul's.
I never said Yeshua wasn't a prophet. That's why you need to listen, bro. I said Jesus. That. I said Jesus is not a prophet, but that's what I'm saying. It's laughter.
Oh, so Yeshua is the prophet.
Yeshua definitely is the prophet.
Okay, so I need you to break down where Yeshua said this is the law of the new ASHAM.
Well, Yeshua said this is the law of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
He showed it, bro. That's what I'm saying. He showed it when he spoke in Luke.
Okay. So now we're getting
these things.
Now we're getting into my 7 minutes. Okay. So buckle up and get ready. It started. So first and foremost, was Yeshua lying all 3 times when he said that the wine in the cup was the blood of his covenant?
Nah, he wasn't.
He wasn't lying?
He said this right.
Cool.
Right.
Next question.
He said do this in remembrance.
Next question. Right. Is Isaiah 53 speaking of an individual or a congregational ASHAM?
It's speaking of both.
Okay, next question. Can you cite a law with the process of an ASHAM where a human being is done? Where a human being is used for the ASHAM? Can you cite one law with that process?
You'll never find it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can you cite where anyone pouring out their soul made a drop of blood happen anywhere?
Man, bro, you make it too easy. Now, as a Muslim, like which? All right.
Yes or no, bro? Can you cite it or can you not cite it?
Yeah. Let me see.
Okay, so where did someone pouring out their soul make blood happen? What verse is that?
Let's go to Mark. I can't believe you asked that one, bro. But I can't believe you asked a lot of questions. Let me see.
What's the verse?
Mark 17. Let me see. I gotta look, man. I got it highlighted or something.
Not next question. Don't give me the verse later.
Let me see.
Can you cite
Nah,
can you cite the Hebrew word for blood, sacrifice, atone, redeem, or ransom anywhere in Isaiah 53?
look, let's go to
It's a yes or no question. Can you cite this? Can you cite the Hebrew word for blood, sacrifice, atone, redeem, or ransom anywhere in Isaiah 53? Yes or no?
nah, the word blood is not in there if I'm not mistaken.
Cool.
But
Got it, Coach. Next question.
Next
question.
This
Next
is what I'm saying.
question.
This is what you're not understanding.
Next question. Next question. Can a human literally be a lamb, a ram, a goat, a bull? Next question. Can a human literally be a lamb, a ram, a goat, a bull, or dove, a pigeon, etc.? Yes or no?
No, my brother. But according to
okay, next question. Next question. Can a human soul can a human soul satisfy a Levitical ASHAM offering? Yes or no?
Human flesh? Nah, not a human being, bro. Only Yahweh. Only Yahshua can.
Next question. Is a lamb being sacrificed anywhere in Isaiah 53? If so, where?
Nah, the suffering servant is.
Okay, next question. Is a silent sheep being sheared part of any literal ASHAM offering?
Now that's the part where, I mean, of all the figurative
next question.
language you putting on there, that's the one you should see, because that is speaking of him being led to the high priest, being questioned, and he's not answering, he's not resisting, bro. Come on, bro, that's easy, man.
If you can't cite any law for a new human ASHAM, any Levitical law making such clean, how can you justify saying the ASHAM is a literal sacrifice in Isaiah 53?
Because it says it. What does it mean when he says he will be made an offering for sin? He will be made an ASHAM. Show me an ASHAM, which you didn't yet, that has blood in his body not being spilled. Because last time I checked,
so next question. Can you show me the ASHAM of Melchizedek?
A covenant that's made without blood.
We're on my 7 minutes. So the question is this: can you show me the Melchizedek priesthood breakdown of an ASHAM via either Melchizedek, David, or Jesus himself, or Yahshua?
Well, what you got to understand is,
yes or no? Can you show me any one of the three explaining it? Can you show me explaining this ASHAM that covers a human sacrifice? Yes or no?
Well, it wasn't prescribed in the law, so to speak. That was the law of Levites that was handed down to us. There's only 3 verses that speak of Melchizedek.
So were you lying earlier when you said that the Levitical priesthood is the lesser law and the Melchizedek priesthood is the greater law?
Nah, because the verses we do have of Melchizedek, it talks of him having no father, no mother, no beginning, no end, being a high priest of Yahweh. So that one verse right there tells us, and also when we read Psalms and it says, David, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And then when we read in Hebrews 10, speaking of Melchizedek and Yahshua taking up that office, where the law of the priest is the Levitical priest is no longer needed, because not only is Yahshua went to the Father, but the Levitical priests need an offering for themselves as well.
Next question. Okay, so does the Melchizedek priest David specify that the sacrifices of the Most High, that he does not delight in offerings and sacrifices, but the sacrifices of the Most High are a broken heart and a contrite spirit? Does he say this, yes or no?
Right. And Yahshua says, bring to me your brokenhearted, your blind.
So can you cite, next question, can you cite another Melchizedek priest that says something other than David that makes an ASHAM where a human being is the literal sacrifice applicable and lawful? Yes or no?
Wait, repeat that.
Can you cite, since I just cited a Melchizedek priest, David, King David, alayhi salam, right? Can you cite another Melchizedek priest that cites something different than that, to where an ASHAM can be a literal human sacrifice? Because he said the sacrifice of the Most High is a broken heart, contrite spirit.
Isaiah 53:10. He shall
be made. So who's the Melchizedek priest in Isaiah 53:10 explaining the new ASHAM? You tell me.
He shall be made the suffering servant.
Who is the Melchizedek priest in Isaiah 53:10 explaining the new ASHAM?
Wait, what? Now, what's your new question? What's your next question?
Who is the Melchizedek priest? Because I decided a Melchizedek priest. Who's the Melchizedek priest in Isaiah 53 stating a new ASHAM?
I didn't say that. You asked me to show you where there's.
So you can't cite one nowhere. I cited. So what? Here's my last question. My last question. My last question. Here's my last question. Here's my last question. Here's my last question.
And that's Isaiah 53.
Here's my last.
You can't switch to another question to try to, that don't make sense, bro.
Here's my last question.
Go ahead.
So if you can't cite now one of the three Melchizedek priests stating any kind of new ASHAM other than the Levitical ASHAM.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to say it like this then. Was Yeshua in ASHAM based upon Levitical priesthood or Melchizedek priesthood?
According to Exodus 25, he was based on a pattern set in heaven. That's what you're not understanding, bro. Exodus 25, 26, and 27. Everything that we have as Israelites, according to the temple, is according to the pattern that's in heaven. That's what you're not understanding. You keep putting.
So is that a Levitical pattern or a Melchizedek pattern? Is that a Levitical pattern or a Melchizedek pattern?
It's after the Melchizedek pattern, and the Levitical pattern is patterned after the Melchizedek pattern. That's what you're not understanding. You're trying to put.
Okay. So bro. So you just changed the game. So I need to clarify now. So are you saying that the ASHAM described in the Levitical priesthood is the same ASHAM of the Melchizedek priesthood?
Bro, there was no ASHAM back then. See, that's what I'm saying. You need to really read the scriptures, bro, because
if the Levitical priesthood is what they got from the Melchizedek priesthood
was made after, bro. The Most High didn't intend for that, bro. When you look at it, there was only whole burnt offerings given when Melchizedek was the priest. That's what you need to understand the law, bro. You don't understand the law.
Hold on, real quick. Can you cite where Melchizedek gave a whole burnt offering anywhere?
No, I said during his time. I'm
with that. Can you show me where offerings?
That's what I'm saying.
Can you show me where Melchizedek gave one? Because it doesn't say priest right after the order of Noah or Moses. It says Melchizedek, right?
No, I'm saying during his time, which is before the giving of the law on Sinai.
Can you show me?
Before the giving of the law on Sinai, bro, there was no. This is what I'm saying. Before the Senate on Sinai, there was no law for the ASHAM.
Simple question. Can you show any? So, if all I can see is Melchizedek giving bread and wine, and then I see Jesus giving bread and wine, saying that this is the sign of the New Testament, and that he's a priest forever after Yeshua, that he's a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Why should I believe that anything other than bread and wine is the sign of the Melchizedek priesthood? Is the offering of the Melchizedek priesthood? Whoa. Wait. Here's the comma. Particularly when I see in the ASHAM language of Leviticus, it stipulates that I can bring flour to the offering. I can bring basically bread to the offering.
Right. But what if you bring something with a heartbeat? What you got to do, bro? That's what I'm saying. You brothers is not being
no. Answer the question. Answer the question.
Right. If you have a meat offering, which is rather a grain offering, or you bring flour, you burn that flour with the altar, with the ashes from the altar of burnt sacrifice, which was burnt, which was set on fire by the Most High, which is burnt continually by the sacrifices, bro. So you still have blood mingled in with those offerings, bro, whether it be blood or whether it be grain, bro. So I asked you earlier, and you went right back to. So wait.
Now you dancing. So now I'm gonna expose you.
How do you burn it?
So now I'm gonna.
What about what? No.
Now I'm gonna expose you.
Wait. Let's do this. Let's do this one step at a time, bro. What do you mean no?
No.
What do you mean
no? Because you decided not to answer the question.
How do you burn it?
You decided not to answer the question. You decided not to answer the question. You decided.
I just answered
I can go to a whole bunch of.
I just answered your question. You said.
How do you burn it? In ovens with the other cakes, bro. How about that one?
This is what I'm saying, bro.
Answered your question.
You
So now
asked
you're going to
me.
finish answering mine. No, because you didn't even try to answer my question. You didn't even try to, bro. You tap dancing so cold. You like Ben Vereen in this piece.
Listen, bro, because
You ain't Israelite. You Ben
running
Vereen,
from the
dog.
conversation.
So straight up and down. So here's the question one more time. Here's the question one more time. Here's the question one more time. So if Melchizedek gave bread and wine, and that's all I can see him
Oh,
give,
it's not another question. Man, you
no,
just
it's the same question. You didn't. It's the same question. You didn't answer. It's the same question. You didn't answer.
Smashed about 2 minutes ago, bro. Go ahead, bro.
It's the same question. You didn't answer.
Question, bro. No, you
same
didn't. You
question.
just asked. You just
it's the same
of
question. You didn't answer.
That's what
it's the same question. You didn't answer. Like I answered your question. They have ovens where they bake the other cakes. And you want me to break? I'll do a full and just
see. That's why I say you need to learn the law, bro. That's just a different way that you can make it.
So teach me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So teach me. Okay. So hold on, no. So where can you see Melchizedek giving anything other than bread and wine? And where can you see Jesus offering anything other than bread and wine?
Okay, bro. Stop jumping all over the place.
I'm jumping right to the scroll you're talking about, right? So Melchizedek, straight up and down. Is Melchizedek in Genesis 14 Melchizedek? Yes or no? Yes or no? Can you answer that one at least?
Nah, bro, because
you can't answer that. No, I'll tell you. Yes, Melchizedek in Genesis 14 is Melchizedek, and in Genesis 14 offers bread and wine. It's also said in Hebrews chapter 7. The same is done, right? The same is done in Hebrews 7. So when he offers bread and wine, and Jesus offers bread and wine, Yeshua offers bread and wine, why is that any different? When I can't find any one of them explaining in a ASHAM sacrifice where a human being can satisfy the sacrifice like a fucking vampire, why are you trying to tell me that's what they're saying?
Right. So before we go any further, you don't ascribe to the book of Hebrews. That's the question I should have asked you the beginning.
I'm gonna answer any question you got as soon as you answer that question. You failed to answer twice. So if Melchizedek offers bread and wine and Yeshua offers bread and wine, why are you telling me that they offered something else when you can't show it to me anywhere else?
Because all through the gospel, bro, Yeshua suffered. He spilled blood. He was scourged. He was beaten. He was hung.
Okay, so this is where you fail to understand the law, Gideon. You can't have a bruised sacrifice to the Most High. You are not an Israelite. You are a Christian. Stop lying to the people. You fake hypocrite.
Okay. Besides the emotion,
Israelites understand you can't bring a bruised sacrifice to the temple to the Most High. They get that understanding. They also understand the priests don't do the bruising themselves or the stabbing themselves. They get that concept. The priests don't flog the damn lamb or the ram or the pigeon or the bull. None of that. They sacrifice it. They don't beat the shit out the animal. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Grow up.
Check this out. This is where you have to learn the law some more. Okay. In the Gospels, the high priest does not beat them. It's the soldiers. It's the people that brings him to the high priest. So you have to understand the law. That's what I'm saying, bro. You need to go back and read the Old Testament Torah instead of just pick and choosing like you're doing in the New Testament verses to where if you don't have the full understanding of it, you can't apply it right. So when you're looking
you got 5 minutes. You want 5 or 7 minutes for your closeout because we got to close this out and we'll bring the family in. What you want to do?
Right. This is what I want to ask you, but this is what I want to correct. This is what I want to
close out. We're going to the closeout.
All right. So in closing, I just want to correct the brother and direct you, brothers and sisters, to the cunning that's going on. Things that he's refuting are things that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, and they're actually incorrect. When I told him that when he asked me the question, is an ASHAM, he said there's an ASHAM offering that's brought with grain where the blood is involved. When I had to explain to him the law that offering is burnt with fire from the altar that has been burning from the sacrifices all day since the beginning of the temple. So what he does is he says, no, my brother, it can be baked in the oven or a pan. Brothers and sisters, he don't know the law, so do not listen to what he's saying. That is just talking about different ways that you can bring it forward to the priest. It still is going to be disposed of in the same way. The brother clearly, you know, to be a debater, you know, that's a good tactic, you know, kind of pick and grab different pieces out, different parts of the Bible. That way, you know, you can, to the average person who really don't, you know, understand the scriptures, you can kind of maneuver around them and, you know, make them look a certain way when they should really be questioning your credibility because you're picking and choosing. So, like I said, when I heard the debate the first time, or the discussion that, you know, my brother had with the panel on his debate, you know, I seen it, you know, his understanding, you know, the brother is smart, but his understanding, you know, it's almost like, you know, I mean, he's just fighting a lot of contradictions. I pray the brother get it right, and, you know, appreciate him coming on and we taking this time to discuss. Shalom, everybody. Still trying to see where that covenant with no blood is at, but, you know, I'm not waiting on that one. Shalom.
I'll use the rest of your time then. So it's real simple, family. That covenant that he's talking about with no blood is the same covenant that he's talking about as the new covenant. Anyone can go read the chapter 31 of Jeremiah for themselves. You're not going to see blood marking any of that covenant. You're going to see the same wording of Ezekiel 18, to where it marks the concept of no longer shall you have this saying to where the parents eat sour grapes and the children shall have gnashing of teeth, but every soul shall die for their own sin. Not someone else dying for everyone else's sin. Every soul shall die for their own sin. That's what the mark of the new covenant is. So we got to be intellectually honest with the people. The question of the night, again, like I told you at the beginning, was, is it a literal or a figurative ASHAM? And a brush trying to come at me like I'm pulling some slick debate tactics. I put it out there right in front of you. All you got to do is show me X, Y, and Z. My dude said, I don't even have to try to show you X, Y, and Z. You just got to believe me. You just don't understand. So I'm saying, okay, via the tradition, can you show me the law given to a prophet? No, you can't. I'm showing you, okay, Melchizedek, bread, wine. That's one Melchizedek priest. If this is the greater law. David, the sacrifices of the Most High are a broken heart and a contrite spirit. Cool, got it, coach. Second Melchizedek priest. Yahshua, third Melchizedek priest, if you claim it. He's stipulating, okay, this is the blood of the New Testament that the brother's talking about. He says it 3 times. And every time he says it, he's handing out bread and wine to his people at a supper. Nowhere is literal blood necessary for salvation. That's going to be a conversation for our next debate. But in this situation, all he had to do was show the law given to any prophet of the Most High that stipulates the Levitical laws, a ASHAM offering does not apply to Isaiah 53. Otherwise, you're saying that it does. And if you're saying the Levitical law applies, there's no part of the Levitical law where a human being can satisfy an ASHAM. That would be cannibalism. A Levitical priest is supposed to eat part of that. And again, like it stipulates, if blood's supposed to be everywhere, the original covenant, the one given to Noah, talks about in 9 and 4 in Genesis, right? That you can't eat the life and the blood of an animal. You can't do it. So unless you can show a law changing all of that, you're saying Noah's wrong. You're saying Moses is wrong. You're saying Jeremiah is wrong. Isaiah is wrong. You're saying Ezekiel is wrong. Countless other prophets. And you're going to uphold the words of a man called Paul, whom you say is not a prophet of Israel or not a prophet to Israel. And again, if his words outrank Yeshua's, you got to explain that one to me. because Yahshua stipulates, this is the blood of my covenant. And then tells people stuff like pick up your cross daily. It's not possible for someone to literally die on a cross every day. That has to be figurative language. It has to be. It's not possible for it to be literal. Just like it's not possible for a literal human being and a literal soul to satisfy, and literal blood from a human being to satisfy an ASHAM offering anywhere in the Levitical law. That's why it's disingenuous and dishonest intellectually to state otherwise, because you can't show it anywhere in the text. And that's the point of this debate, is there's not one verse you can pull from that says this law came down to this prophet saying this human sacrifice is now lawful for the nation. There's only one ASHAM described. One type of ASHAM described. With that, I say peace and love, fam. So Gideon, you want to end that here? You want to bring in people? What you want to do?
Now we can bring in the brethren, you heard me? Whoever want to come in, if anybody want to come in.
You know what I'll do? Hold on. Let me end this right here, and then I'm gonna start a brand new stream because of my computer setup real quick. And we'll be right back, family, in like 2-3 minutes. Y'all stay tuned.